Ladies and gentlemen, it is Mio on MMA time. Talking about Bellator San Diego as well as UFC Vegas 97. I am trying yet again another change in the setup. So hopefully my Spotify audio, if you're listening there, isn't garbage. I've yet to be able to figure out what the problem with that is. But anyways, let's roll. Let's do this. Let's get it on, shall we? We start with the UFC card because I imagine that is what most people are here for. UFC Vegas 97. We'll talk about one a little bit, but this is predominantly going to be a UFC show because the Vegas card was the most interesting. You have Gilbert Burns versus Sean Brady in the main event. I picked Gilbert Burns. I was wrong and pretty comprehensively wrong. I will say that I did think I saw this kind of result as an option because Sean Brady is a strong wrestler, is a at times willing striker, even when except when he gets uncomfortable. And that Gilbert Burns is a guy who at 38 years old is having some problems. He's reduced. He's having a hard time pulling the trigger. He's having a hard time implementing his game. He's having a hard time doing the things that made Gilbert Burns one of the best welterweights in the world. And that was this fight. I don't want to take away from Sean Brady. He fought hard, maybe with the exception of the third round, but he fought hard for like 5 rounds here. And for a guy whose big question about Mark has been like cardio, he's like Colby Covington 2.0 without like the cardio dog in him. And I know the commentary always tries to, bring up him because he does triathlons, Ironmans, all that stuff. He does a lot of like stuff that indicates absolute cardio conditioning, but like it has never really translated into a fight. Every fight he has, he tends to slow down in the third round, tends to, lose the gas pedal a little bit. So him going 5 rounds with Gilbert Burns and winning all 5 of them on, I think, 2 cards and 1 card gave. Actually, kind of curious, what round? I'm going to guess it's the 3rd round, but what round did Judge David Lethaby give Gilbert Burns? Yeah, the 3rd round. Yeah, makes sense. The 3rd round was the closest round, like I said. The only thing really to say here is that like the 4th round starts with like stereo ball shots, basically, or not stereo, but answering ball shots. Brady kicks Burns, Burns kicks Brady. So that was, amusing, but otherwise it was kind of the same thing. It was Brady grinding Burns into the cage over and over and over again, getting takedowns, but not being able to hold him down, not being able to like make the ground his friend, realistically speaking, but throwing more, landing more, controlling where the fight happened for the most part, and having just that little bit extra problem with Burns on the ground. That being said, I mean, Gilbert Burns is a phenomenal grappler, and that means that that's probably a workable plan against just about anybody else. He ended up with 7 takedowns here, outlanded him 130 to 47 in significant strikes, 274 to 76 strikes in total with 10.5 minutes of top control. 2 minutes of top control in 3 out of the 5 rounds. Pretty comprehensive performance from Sean Brady, even if I do firmly believe that this is more about the fall of Gilbert Burns than the rise of Sean Brady. But hey, Brady gets a big win under his belt. His, at this point, crowning moment as a fighter, and he's definitively a guy who is in the title shot picture. He's not going to get a title shot, I think, as long as Belal Muhammad is champion, because Muhammad knocked him out. I just don't see that actually happening, unless he can go on like a John Fitch, or actually, come to think of it, Belal Muhammad-esque run that like demands a title shot. But he is in that rare category. He's a top 10 welterweight, probably a top 5 welterweight, if not top 5, then like 6th or 7th on the list. So he's a phenomenal fighter, and as much as I'm not super excited for what the future brings for him, he's there, and I'm going to appreciate it. I'm going to appreciate the hard work. I'm going to appreciate the effort. So there you go. Anyways, as for what's next, apparently there's some heat between him and Ian Gary. So Ian Gary and him does seem like a pretty good idea. It seems like a fight that ticks all the boxes. You have a little bit of backstory. You have a little bit of bad blood. You have 2 guys who are like that top 6, top 7 area of the world at 170, and they can handle their business. So why not make that? Now, I do see Ian Gary probably not accepting that fight because I don't think it's a stylistic matchup that's very good for Gary. And on top of that, I don't think it has the heat on it. Because like even with this win over Gilbert Burns, how much like casual fan recognition is Sean Brady going to have? My gut says not a lot, but we'll find out, I guess. But that is what I would do. That is what let's put it this way. I would offer that, and it's up to Ian Gary to veto it. As for Burns, a lot of people have talked about Colby Covington. I'm fine with that. It's about as good as anything you can do with him if Colby is still a thing. There are two guys on the decline. I am never really I'm never really going to get in the way of like two old veterans who have not fought each other for whatever reason. They've passed like ships in the night, and getting their showdown finally. Like, so I don't have a problem with that fight. I don't love it. I'm not going to be like, this fight has to happen, but it's as good as anything on the table. Additionally, Burns has lost, is this 3 in a row, or was there one there in between the Bilal and the Della Maddalena? No, he has lost 3 in a row. So yeah, I don't really know if you can do anything like big with him in terms of like, rankings, ratings, whatever, title contention. I just don't think that that's on the table right now. So yeah, why not? Natlia Silva versus Jessica Andrade. Fantastic performance by Natlia Silva. The first round was close. I gave it to Andrade. If he gave it to Silva, I don't have a problem with that. But basically the deal is that in the first round, Andrade was able to crowd Silva to the fence and unleash some power on her periodically. And as time went on, the fact that Andrade is a very shallow technician came to roost, because she would try to do what she did in the first round over and over again through the second and the third round. And Silva was ready for it. Silva was going to be off the cage a lot more, get into positions where she can land her kick arsenal a lot more effectively than in the first round, and just kind of open up a striking volume gap as well as a power volume gap, because in the first round they went 33-24 in strikes in favor of Silva. After that, it was 37-17 and 49-21. So there you go. Andrade was unable to get any takedowns. Actually, only credited with one attempted takedown. I kind of argue that there were more there, at least like intent. But hey, whatever. All three judges scored at 30-27 for Silva. I don't have a problem with that. It was a fantastic performance by Natlia Silva. It is facilitated by the fact that there is significant limitations to Jessica Andrade's game. That's why I picked Silva to win. But Silva went in there with somebody who is a physical beast who could clinch up with her and denied the takedown opportunities and made this essentially a Muay Thai fight in a nutshell, and dealt with the power and the threat that Andrade presents in the pocket. It's a fantastic performance. It's a great display, and I have no doubt that Natlia Silva is going to be fighting for a title at some point in the future. In fact, the fight I'm going to suggest is essentially kind of a number one contender fight. I mean, I do feel like Manon Fiorot really deserves a title shot at 125 against the winner of Shevchenko Grasso 3, which is hopefully not Shevchenko, because if it's Shevchenko, then we're probably in like a Grasso Shevchenko 4, and I don't really want that. I mean, I'm okay with that like in the long run, but like I do want to get some fresh talent in there. I really want Manon Fiorot to get her title shot. So to that end, I put Natlia Silva up against Maycee Barber. I feel like it's going to go a lot similar to this Andrade fight, but it was the suitable opponent that didn't have a dance partner available. And I will probably pick Natlia Silva if that fight happens, but it is the best fight I've got for it right now. For Andrade, I didn't see anything at flyweight that really makes any sense for her, realistically speaking, unless she's going to wait like for like some like matchups to, clean up and whatever, which may not be a bad thing. I mean, Andrade is going through still a pretty tumultuous time in her life. She's broken away from her ex-wife and her manager and so on. And like, there's a legal case for something like $2 million. Anyways, that might not be a bad thing for her to just take some time off. But if we're going to do a matchup with her, I think the most appealing thing I have on the table is a strawweight fight with Tabitha Ricci. I think it would be fun. And there you go. I would also probably continue my trend of picking Tabitha Ricci fights wrong. Somehow Ricci beats Jessica Andrade. Kyle Nelson versus Steve Garcia. Not much to say here early. I mean, there was an early stumble by Garcia, and that was kind of like about it. He ended up on the ground with Nelson in back control. So there was that. But Garcia turns into him, right into an armbar, gets away from the armbar by just punching Nelson in the face repetitively, and he eventually abandons the armbar to protect his own face, and then just destroys him. Just crushes him until Mark Smith steps in. And at the end of the day, there is some conversation here about the legality of Garcia's strikes. There were some obvious damage to like the back edges of the head for Nelson. That being said, I don't think that there's really anything there. I mean, don't get me wrong. I understand back of the head strikes are illegal and whatever, but like there was no, Garcia was not aiming for the back of the head. You know, there was no intent. I know it's hard. Like, I know I've spoken up against intent before, but it's like you were getting crushed and you happened to get hit once or twice in the back of the head, Kyle Nelson. You lost this fight. His wife is on Twitter talking about appeal. Maybe there will be. But like the track record of appeals with the Nevada State Athletic Commission is pretty damn poor. So I imagine that nothing's going to come of this. And if I'm looking at this analytically speaking, Garcia won the fight and proved that like what he's got, in fact, does work against a fighter the level of Kyle Nelson. He continues to surprise me. We'll just put it that way. He just continues to surprise me. I've got him against Calvin Kattar because it seems about right. Like that Kattar was going to fight Kyle Nelson. Kyle Nelson lost to Garcia. Seems like that follows the Kattar versus Garcia is an option. And for Nelson, I've got Julio Arce as a fun fight that kind of ticks all the boxes, I think, for both guys. So there you go. I will say Garcia being buddies with Charlie Kirk is, it's a bit weird. I've said this. I'm not going to get mad at like fighter politics. I've always said like the best way as an MMA fan to approach like politics and fighting is to just ignore like it just doesn't matter. They shouldn't matter. They shouldn't have any influence whatsoever. But it is a bit weird. Like it's more that it's like just a bit weird that like in this day and age we look at political pundits, which is what Charlie Kirk essentially is, and we look at them as like cool dudes to hang out with. I don't know. Like if I was hanging out with, like this is the weird thing is like I'm predominantly a left-leaning political person, and inevitably at the end of the day, there's like no one really to put in that spot. I don't know. Sam Cedar. There you go. I wouldn't be like, hey guys, I'm gonna go hang out with Sam Cedar. It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be dope. This is my like post-fight fight. War cry. No, I just wouldn't. So I don't know. It's weird. We move on. Matt Schnell versus Cody Durden. I had Matt Schnell winning the first round. I thought he was landing the cleaner shots. I think he landed more shots. We will check the UFC stats just for like, you know, argument's sake. Yeah, apparently he outlanded him 40-36 in the first round. So there you go. So he landed more, landed cleaner shots, the better form on his punches and so on. But then in the second round, he comes out and he shoots for a takedown from way too far outside. And Cody Durden locks up a ninja choke. And that was all she wrote. So Matt Schnell apparently retires, which, I mean, 34 years old, flyweight, that's old. At the weight class, he's had a rough time. His body is clearly, you know, starting to fade, starting to be difficult for him to win fights. If we look at his last run here, he's on an official 33 fight losing streak to Durden, Urseg, and Matthias Nicolau, 2 by knockout, 1 by submission, and then also like almost getting finished by Sumu Darji, and then coming up with a triangle choke, getting guillotined by Brandon Royval, and losing initially, and then having it removed as a disqualification for PEDs. Not a disqualification, but no contest for PEDs against Rodrigo Bontarin. You have to go back to 2019 to find Matt Schnell winning back-to-back fights. That was Louis Smoka and Jordan Espinosa. So, yeah, I mean, if he is retired, great. If he's not retired, not great. Because if he comes back, it probably means that like he either financially or on a personal level can't really function as a former MMA fighter. And neither of those are fun ideas. Neither of those are like things I want to see. So there you go. Anyways, like I said, Durden gets the W here in pretty impressive fashion. And I've got him going on. The Twitter pick seems to be him fighting Tim Elliott, but I don't like that fight because, I mean, I'm not against it. It's a fun enough fight and whatever. But I see both of those guys as like dudes who other people should be proving themselves against, and two dudes who are not ever going to get above where they are. Their age means that they are what they are. Elliott's already fought for a title. I don't think it's going to ever happen again. I don't think Durden's ever going to fight for a title. So I don't know. I don't like it. I would do Cody Durden versus Alan Nascimento. That's just me. Trevor Peek versus Yanal Ashmouz was not particularly fun, and I guess it kind of was what I thought it would be, is that Peek as a technical fighter likes the idea of being in close and exposing himself to wrestling threats a lot. So he got taken down 9 times in this fight, 6 times in the second round, for example, and never really was going to pull away from Ashmouz and kind of like use the part of his game that actually probably had a chance against Ashmouz, which is, janky striking. And at the end of the day, I had Ashmouz winning the second and the third round. I did think the first round was like just what stand-up there was. And 2.5 minutes of it took place on the ground, so that is what it is. But like what striking there was enough volume and quality from Peek to take the round. But you cannot spend 8+ minutes on your back in a fight. Like that is problematic. And I don't know. I guess like we need to go back to like Trevor Peek fighting people who are just going to kind of bang with him, because that's the fun thing. Like he's a freak show fighter. like just treat him as such. Ashmouz I got against Charlie Campbell. I know that that's a weird pick because a lot of people think there's some hype around Charlie Campbell that I cannot place. I cannot figure out. I can't honestly get to, because I've watched the guy fight quite a bit, and it's not that he's like terrible or anything. It's not that he's not UFC caliber. It's just Charlie Campbell was a guy who people were like telling me he's really, really good. He's really, 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 really good. Like he's a good grappler, a good striker, etc. And I'm like, I watched this guy lose to Chris Duncan on Contender Series. I watched this guy go decision with Trevor Peek. I watched this guy have he did crush Alex Reyes, but like, it's Alex Reyes. Like otherwise, it's a can crushing thing. Like if you just look at the records of the guys he's fought: 0-0, 3-1, 2-0, 2-1, 5-4, 6-2. 9-5, 13-3 Alex Reyes, who is way worse than his record would indicate, and then 9-1 Trevor Peek, and it's just like, I don't know, like I don't feel it, but I mean maybe he would just crush Yanal Ashmouz, and maybe I would finally have to accept that. I don't think that's going to happen because the UFC seems invested in Charlie Campbell, so probably not. Chris Padilla with one of the sweetest knockouts of the fight. Well, no, not really. There was some great stuff in one Muay Thai, but all right, this was a sweet elbow, over the top elbow knockout for Padilla. I will say I got this fight right in the sense that I picked Padilla to win. I did not have it going anywhere like this. I picked Padilla on the basis of Rong Zhu, who he was fighting, has a historical tendency to get taken down in the first round, has a historical tendency to give up his neck. And Padilla, a good wrestler and a good choke artist, was going to capitalize on it. Nope. He apparently was going to go full kickboxer against Rong Zhu and finish him with an elbow to the eye socket, which almost certainly is going to have Rong Zhu looking, let's just say, looking a little bit concussed for some period of time. It was a good performance by Padilla, but no. You know what? I'm going to be positive. It was just kind of a good performance from him. I'm not going to say he's like an expert striker or anything, but he proved that against lower end strikers, he can strike, and that's where he is right now. So there you go. As for what's next, he called out Mahashate, and it makes as much sense as anything else, so let's go with it. Rong Zhu, I do not care. He's young enough to be something. I want to be clear on that. 24 years old, reasonably athletic. All things considered for the Chinese regional scene and what he's been doing, he actually has a decent style, but he's not UFC caliber right now. Here's what the UFC needs to do with some of these guys, particularly guys from markets that they're still trying to expand and be more in, which China is definitely one of them. They need to put them on a developmental contract. I brought this up, and they did this with Greg Hardy back in the day. Let this guy fight in a bunch of Fight Pass promotions, CFFC, Legacy Fighting Alliance, LFA, Fury FC, whatever you have to do. Get him time in the cage, but do not do it in the UFC, because you're eventually going to keep putting him up against guys he's just not able to beat. And it lowers down the quality of the roster. And he's not like a Trevor Peek who's got that weird freak show appeal. He's just a guy who maybe could be something and maybe could help the intro into the Chinese market a little bit stronger. But it's not going to happen if you you're going to have to bring guys into the UFC who don't belong for him to win against. So don't do that. Put him on some kind of development deal. Let it happen. I don't know. He'll get matched up against somebody. Speaking of guys who don't belong in the UFC, Brendan Marote got destroyed by Isaac Dolgarian, and I do not have much more to say about that. I will say this, that Marote is just bad. He actively ignores his corner. He's going for jump knees out there. He's a guy who I have no idea why they ever signed. I know he came in as a late notice replacement, I think, against Terrence McKinney. I could be wrong. Let me pull up the record here. Yeah, he came in as a late notice replacement against Terrence McKinney in 2023. It was supposed to be Chris Duncan, and they replaced it with Brendan Marote, and he lost that fight. And it's fine, whatever. But this is not a guy who belongs here. His wins, I was talking earlier about the record of the guys Charlie Campbell has faced. Marote's is so much worse. 0-0, 0-0, 0-1, 0-1, 5-8, 8-4, 3-1, 11-20. Come on, man. You have 2 wins over guys with winning records, and they are Dion Rubio and Dan Dubuque. And Rubio is retired, apparently, after you beat him. 3-2. Well, I don't know if retired, but hasn't fought since March of last year. So, 3-2 guy. And then Dubuque, who's 9-5 with losses to guys who are not very good. He's got a loss to 16-11 Bruce Boynton. He's got a loss to 9-7 Jacob Bond. 5-2 Tim Dooling. I will say losing to Manny Bermudez is fine back in the early days. Manny Bermudez was a good fighter who made it to the UFC. But yeah, no, this is a guy who just should not be here. He is a can crusher. I don't understand why he's here. He's fights in a way that suggests that he thinks he's a massive athlete, and he's just not. There is no hope. Anyways, cut him now, please. Go away. Go to the next stage of your life so that you can make money and not damage your brain and actually provide for your family. Please do that. Dolgarian of guy against Jamal Emmers, which would be an actually pretty good fight. Andre Lima versus Felipe Dos Santos was kind of exactly what I expected it to be. Honestly, Lima was able to largely control Dos Santos, in terms of positioning in the cage, clinch up with him pretty much at will, do his thing, and landed less significant strikes, 38-18, and outlanded also 69-43. But 2 takedowns for 4+ minutes of top control in the second and the third round. Was able to put him down and do his thing. The problem is that I think I said this on Twitter, and I said this while watching with the boys. But at the end of the day, somewhere between these two guys exists a really good fighter. Lima is a little bit too inactive, and it is going to cost him at some point. Dos Santos is the opposite issue. He's too active, too aggressive, too dumb, and this fight was basically that. Lima allowing a fight that he probably could have won really easily if he just stepped up a little bit on the counter game, stepped up a little bit in the volume, took it from, let's see here, what did he throw in this fight? Taking it from throwing 70 strikes in a flyweight fight to 100, 110? Doesn't even have to do what Dos Santos did. But, yeah, anyways, he got the win. He got away with a big old cage grab, which is interesting because, of course, he famously got bit by Igor Severino because he was grabbing the cage against Igor Severino. Also, Igor Severino couldn't control himself. I want to be clear. I'm not forgiving the guy who bit him. But, it is interesting that Lima's fights are, have so much to do with, just cage grabbing and stuff. So, anyways, that was a thing. So we had that. And for next up, I have Lima against Charles Johnson if he loses to Sumo Darji somehow. But if he beats Sumo Darji, he's in a different place. And I'm not interested in Lima versus Sumo Darji. So Bruno Silva could also be an option. And for Dos Santos, I got Kevin Borges. If Borges' injury isn't a big deal, he pulled out of a fight against Edgar Shirez recently. And I think Joshua Van is taking his place, which, by the way, sucks to be you, Edgar. He's otherwise a solid guy to welcome people to the UFC with like just a pace thing. And then we had Gabriel Santos just wrecking Yi's Ha and somehow going the distance. Like I will say this: the only thing I'll say for Yeehaw is he's tough, he's durable, he's got the heart of a warrior. But like he was easily taken down twice by Gabriel Santos. He was outstruck pretty badly in the first round, doubled up 46-23, got dropped, and in the second and third rounds, obviously he ironically he somehow landed Gabriel Santos on the third round 50-32, but like 3 of them were significant. It was absolute garbage stuff, and he ended up on bottom for 4 minutes. So I guess the only critique I have for Santos is I would like his top game to be a little bit more punishing. I would like him to step up the ground and pound so you don't have a round in which you were on top for 4 minutes and got outlanded. I would like that to be the case. You still won all 3 rounds easily. Welcome to the winners column in your third attempt in the UFC. This was a fight that on paper was way overmatched for Santos, and he showed it for the most part that he's a far different class to Yiza, who I think there was I think it was the Padilla fight where it's like they're giving you some like Asian I forget what I forget what it was. There was a somewhat racially optional mind moment there. Anyway, Santos versus Hyder Emil is my pick for the fight. Yijia is I do not care, and I mean this. I do not care. This is not like a Rong Ju situation where like Rong Ju might turn into something. No, this guy is 27 years old. He has a very limited game. It is basically grind wrestling with a submission game. That is it. I have no interest in it. Please send him away. Jacqueline Amarine versus Vanessa Demopoulos was a controversial fight only in the sense that Amarine was crushing Demopoulos, did hook the glove on the inside to get up an armbar, but like Demopoulos' response to that was to yell, "She's grabbing my gloves! She's grabbing my gloves!" and stop fighting and have like a nervous breakdown panic attack. Obviously, that is not good. And that's kind of the thing is like, that's not going to get overturned. I really doubt that it's going to get overturned. And if you're Vanessa Demopoulos, her coach is, you can't do that. You have to just keep fighting. Like, yeah, you're being fouled, but like, if the ref isn't doing anything about it, the fight is still on. You have to keep going. You can't just let her have an armbar. I think the only reason that this is probably also really not a big deal at all is the fact that it was very clear every moment of that fight that Demopoulos was not able to compete with Amarine. Just was not. So, I mean, I guess that is the beauty of it. There you go. Anyways, Amarine gets the win. I have her against the loser of Jillian Robertson, Luana Pinheiro. She's kind of at that level to like go to that spot. And Demopoulos having against Stephanie Luciano. It's a pretty big step up for Luciano and a pretty big step back for Demopoulos. But I just really, really liked the fight. And I didn't see anything else that was like really, really appropriate. Also, I think this is the role Demopoulos has. She is 35. She is 5'2", with an under 60-inch reach. She is a limited fighter. Her window of going up the ranks has closed. And it's time for like people like Luciano, who are relatively fresh to the UFC, to get a shot at her. Andre Petroski, Dylan Budka was an abortion of a fight. I didn't know why they made the fight, honestly, to begin with. Like, I don't know why you're just giving Petroski a free win. He's really not going to be anything. Like, real talk. Andre Petroski is a guy who had to learn to be kind of boring, to conserve his cardio, and not explode himself. He's 33 years old. He's lost to the likes of Jacob Malkoon. And I think, did he beat GM3 or did he lose to GM3? I'm blanking on that. I forget. But like, he's kind of been proven to have like a very, very hard ceiling, losing to Jacob Malkoon, losing to Aaron Jeffrey back in the day. He did beat GM3. Okay. So he's beaten GM3, Josh Fremd. I don't know why this was a fight with Dylan Budka. Like, it was doing Budka no favors because he lost and missed weight and looked really bad at the weigh-in. and look really bad in the fight. And he's just bad. They tried bigging up Budka's like wrestling, but like he has to be walked through like everything by his corner. Like it's just terrible. Like he's 24 years old, so like there's still time, but like you are not ready for the UFC, and I do not know why you got signed off Contender Series. I do not know. Petrosiev against Rodolfo Vieira, because I only really want to see him like try to grapple people. Zigomatis Ramaska versus Nathan Fletcher was a fun fight. At least for the first round, we got like a weird like inverted triangle thing, some guillotine jar stuff. Ramaska showing like some good like chain grappling and so on, but like no ability to keep the fight standing. Fletcher was getting free takedowns on him repetitively. Second round, boom, takedown for Fletcher. Gets mount early. And ends up with an arm triangle to submit Ramaska. So, yeah. Fletcher, I assume, is going to go down to 135 because he's not physical enough for 145. I don't think he's physical enough for 135. Anyways, I got him against Tony Gravely. Ramaska, I've got him against Lucas Alexander if he's sticking around because he still is an interesting, like, power guy, I guess. How old is he? Ramaska. 27. No, that's not really young enough. I don't know. The guy really needs to learn to wrestle. Really, 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 really needs to learn to stop takedowns. I understand that he's taken the approach, I guess, that instead of stopping takedowns, he's just going to be miserable to grapple with. And he is. Like, he's funky and he's aggressive and stuff, but, like, it ain't working. It's not like you have a bunch of sub wins. You got a couple, but I don't know. I think that's the wrong approach if you're not like an Alan Nascimento or something. But anyways, there you go. All right, that was the UFC portion here. If you're only here for that, you can turn that off now. Bellator Championship Series from San Diego. Usman Nurmagomedov versus Alexander Shalibli. I got in some trouble on Twitter for scoring 2 rounds for Shalibli. I want to be clear. I gave Shalibli the second round and the third round. And on rewatch, I think the third round is indeed wrong. But like I gave them to him by like very, 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 very small margins. Like incredibly small margins. Usman Nurmagomedov was having trouble like putting his force on this because Shalibli was stopping his takedowns and stuff, and obviously on the feet he's a little bit lackluster when he doesn't have wrestling to also add in, and that meant that we had some like really tepid striking for the most part. But like yeah, his takedowns were controlling and smothering the offensive Shalibli, who never really got anything going, never really got anything kind of like barreling forward. And at the end of the day, Usman Nurmagomedov picks up the win by unanimous decision. He wins, or he retains his title. I don't even know what the Bellator title situation is like. I don't think it matters. This promotion's just kind of dead. But anyways, got the win. I will say, can we cool it with like the Khabib stuff when he fights? Like we have the Khabib corner cam. We have the Khabib getting to cut like a full-on promo before Usman even gets to speak. It's a bit weird. Anyways, Usman wins, continues to do his thing. He is very, very, very good. Lorenz Larkin destroyed Levon Chokeli, which I called. Thank you very much. I don't know. I've just never been able to get behind. Chokeli is like a good fighter. Like a really good fighter. I want to be clear on that. Like a really good, like, well, this is the number 1 contender fight for like the 170-pound title in Bellator. Like, he's just not that level. Anyways, Lorenz Larkin did violent things to him and continues to be just appointment viewing every time he fights. Just enjoy Lorenz Larkin, everyone. Aaron Jeffrey beat Douglas Lima. I don't have anything else to say about that. Samuko Naba beat Mackenzie Stiller by ground and pound TKO. Had some problems with Stiller's like clinch judo and so on, but that was about it. And then otherwise, I only saw 2 other fights, which was Jora Avaznian versus Yancy Medeiros, which he won basically by Medeiros, I don't know, just being kind of bad. like letting Jora like pressure him repetitively and get takedowns and make this a wrestling fight that Medeiros could not stop. And, it's not new for Medeiros. And Jordan Newman picked up a pretty impressive victory against Iman Shafi Aliyev, but I don't know. It was a bit of a tepid fight that indicated both of these guys facing their first real challenges of their careers and not really getting it done. And I did go back and watch Bryce Meredith destroy John McCalloy, I think is the name. And I don't know, that doesn't really mean anything. He beat a 4-1 guy who is like a part-time fighter basically. But hey, Bryce Meredith has a great wrestling background, and I think he's still fairly young at 29 years old. He could do some things, but I do think PFL/Bellator kind of needs to step him up a little bit to see if there's anything actually there, as opposed to just giving him basically cans to crush. But that was my thoughts, and I guess I'll talk about the one card real quick. I have to find it here. I was debating whether I was actually going to do this, because I don't talk about kickboxing a lot on this show, because I don't follow it. Like I watch Kickboxing on ONE. I am aware of the big names. I am a fan, but like I spend most of my time watching MMA. It's just the thing. There's only so many hours in a day. There's only so much you can do, and my niche has always been MMA. I've always liked MMA more than I like boxing, more than I like grappling, more than I like kickboxing. It brings it all together in a nice little package, and I really, really enjoy that. So following ONE's kickboxing scene has not been a priority, but hey, we had some cool stuff. Superlek with a big elbow knockout of Jonathan Haggerty. It was a bad night for British kickboxing because Sean also took out Liam Harrison, and I think Harrison was talking about possibly retiring. Could be wrong on that. Shamil Erdogan got a ground and pound finish over Ong Lasong. That's like your MMA news for this one. Pretty good. I mean, Erdogan is on paper a really, really good prospect who can do some things, but like the problem just kind of is after this fight, and I use the word prospect very loosely because he's 34 years old, but he called out Anatoly Malkin, and it's like, yeah, I guess there's not really anything better to do with him than fight Malkin, and it's the problem with ONE is that there's no depth to their MMA divisions at all, with a few exceptions. Anyways, not much more to say about that. Jonathan Lineker did great things against Asa Tempao in Muay Thai action. Let him have it. Basically was just able to walk him down and put the power on Asa Tempao like repetitively and eventually knock him out in the second round with a big hook. Anyways, fantastic performance by John Lineker. Very typical of John Lineker. If you're not familiar with John Lineker, one, have you been living under a rock? But two, fix that. Go watch John Lineker fights. Go. It doesn't matter if they're in the UFC, if they're in ONE, whatever. He is a flawed fighter, but he is constantly entertaining. Victoria Souza defeated Elise Anderson. It was a pretty good fight, actually. It was a touching thing because Anderson's got some health issues in her family going on, and like, you know, it was nice to see that love get explored out there a little bit and have that story be told, and it was nice. But at the end of the day, Victoria Souza proved to be a little bit too much for her, which was kind of expected. Anyways, the decision win for Souza. This is one of those few divisions, the atom weight division in ONE, that actually has a fair amount of depth because, of course, the UFC doesn't have this division. They tend to be listed as 115ers on Tapology, but it's basically a 105 division. And with the hydration test, they end up at 115, obviously. But, yeah. I don't really have anything else to say on that one, I guess. Souza's quite good, quite fun to watch. And this is one of the few divisions I really enjoyed one. EC Fidikelu Kevu, pardon me. It was an F, not an L. Versus Hiroki Tetsuka. Tetsuka is 5'6". What is this noise at 185 pounds? Anyways, Fidikefu picked up the win here. Looked good, but like I think that realistically he's facing somebody who I think just has significant limitations as a fighter at the end of the day. Because like a big part of this was that like Tetsuka would be like eating jabs with like no ability to respond to them against Fidikefu, and Fidikefu having strong grappling carried the day. Anyways, there you go. Doesn't mean much. Neither does Adrian Lee beating Nico Corneo. Adrian Lee, I don't like the Lee family stuff. I don't. They have one kid who tried to kill herself, one kid who probably did. Like, I don't know. It just seems like putting pressure on Adrian Lee at like 18 years old to be a world-class fighter is not actually healthy. Anyways, it just robs me of the fun there. Also, I mean, it's just not a high-level fight. He's fighting a 2-0 guy who, you know, is not a full-time fighter. Corneo is 35 years old, had only 2 fights coming into this, started fighting professionally in 2023, started amateur at 2019, so like at 31. Yeah, I'm not particularly interested in that fight, but hey, it was there. It was reasonably entertaining. Go ahead. Johan Ghazali picked up another knockout win over Josu Cruz. That was pretty cool. That was some fun kickboxing action. And Johan, I didn't see the Johan Espunian versus Sean Climaco fight. It was on before I turned in. It lasted into the second round, 1 minute 28 seconds. And Johan picked up another victory there. I think, isn't he like, doesn't have a nickname for him on Tapology. Is he not like the Panda guy? Panda Kick? Panda Punch? Something like that? I don't know. Again, I do not follow kickboxing super religiously. If you're here for like deep, insightful kickboxing stuff, you've come to the wrong place. There you go. Anyways, check out my links down below. Social media's video game stuff, and also the Discord for the Fight Simulator. I picked up another commentary gig as far as like sim racing is concerned with Evolution Racing Academy. We did our debut on Sunday, which was yesterday as of the recording of this. Anyways, that I guess that will be a note. Scheduling wise, that will probably delay these recap episodes a day like this one. So there you go. That's your news. Have a good day. Enjoy the next batch of fights, and we got Noche coming up. So I don't know. Noche and I have a weird thing going on right now. I'm probably going to really appreciate that the UFC is going to try with the pageantry and try to be cool, but the card is just not really on par with the hype.